Hi, and welcome to the manager's desk. My name's Evan Baltz, and we're happy to have you here today. I have a special guest today. His name is Jerry Black. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, how you doing, Evan?
Jerry and I worked together, oh man, 8, 10 years ago at a large retailer. And actually, Jerry was my manager for about a year or so, I think, while we were there in IT. And Jerry and I developed a really good friendship, have been friends ever since. I tell all of the people that I have managed over the years since that Jerry was the best manager that I have ever had. And I use that as a bar for talking to my direct reports by saying, if I'm not the best manager you've ever had, I have failed. That's the bar that I set for myself. So, welcome, Jerry. I know you have a lot of years of experience in leadership and team building and coaching and a lot of other things. Just give us a little bit of a background.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Evan. So my background, I'll go a little bit back, and hopefully this is all right. I grew up
Yeah,
in Anchorage,
absolutely.
Alaska. Had a construction background life as a kid in the family business kind of thing. Grew up with a lot of work ethic and that sort of deal. And then got into college. My mom actually got me into IT. She's a woman you didn't really mess with kind of lady, you know. She's very harsh still to this day, she is that way. And so she years ago we were parked in a parking lot, and she I thought when you were in a car that the windows were soundproof, but they are not.
No.
And a woman, this is Alaska now, a woman pulled up next to us, and she she only had a t-shirt. It was middle of the winter. She's a blonde lady, big long blonde hair, t-shirt, middle of winter, gets out of the car. And as a young 10-year-old boy, I saw things I had only heard from my brother, what they were. And I commented on them. I said, "Wow, mom, wow, look at that woman's boobs." She smacked me in my face really hard. And I started crying, and this lady comes over to the window, and my mom rolls down the window, and the lady says, um, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about, disciplining your son." And my mom says, "Well, as you can see, I already disciplined my son." And the lady says, "Yes, but if you were a better mother, you wouldn't have to hit."
Ouch. Oh boy.
My mom reached out the window and pulled the blonde wig off this lady's head and threw it at me and said, "Hold on to this, Jerry." She backed up. We had a plow on the front of our Blazer, and she dropped that plow and she plowed snow up on the both sides of this woman's car, and and backed out. And and this woman's yelling at her about, "You can't do that. How can you do that? I can't believe that you did that." And my mom said, "You're right. You can discipline without hitting," and then drove off. Uh, so yeah, so that's who my mom was. Years later, I had a high school counselor who told me, um, I was super excited because I told her, "Hey, I'm a senior. I guess I should start thinking about, trying to get into college." And she said, "With your scores and your grades, you don't have to worry about it." So I was like, "Awesome." I went home, told my mom, "Hey,
Great.
I don't even have to worry about getting into college. Apparently, I could just get into any college I want. I'm super excited." And my mom's like, "What does that mean?" I said, "Oh, the counselor said I didn't have to worry about it." She's like, let's go down and talk to your counselor." Like 10 minutes later, my mom's, you know, being held back by the principal and vice principal of the school. And she's yelling. They got her in an armhold, and she's yelling at the counselor. "You better get my kid into college. If you don't, you're never getting your blonde wig back." That's how I got into DeVry Institute of Technology here in Phoenix, Arizona. So that's how my mom got me into IT. But anyways, that's my background. I've been in IT for a very long time, and I absolutely met Evan at a large retailer here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, great company to work for, and made even better by the people that I met. Evan was um, one of those very special people that I met while working there, and I've always enjoyed our relationship ever since then. And it's a good working environment when you find the people afterwards and you continue to talk positively about the environment and about the
Yes.
product you build. So
Yeah, and it seems as if that's becoming or is somewhat of a rare thing. It feels like, right? But
sure,
one of my mantras is like the work comes and goes, but the people are forever, right?
yeah,
And so those
yeah,
relationships that you build with people in your office over time and develop them. I still keep in contact with people that I worked with 25, 27 years ago
yeah,
on a semi-regular basis. And it's just because you shared an experience with them, you liked them, you respected them, you kind of understood where they were coming from, and you know, right when it gets down to it, you want to reward those people for being special, right? For having those special attributes, for being, real human beings who cared about people, who liked you, who inspired you, who challenged you, and for you and me, above all, made you laugh, right? Like people who make you laugh. And if you can make somebody laugh, you have a friend for life in many instances. And I know comedy is something that's important to you as well, right?
yeah, absolutely. And in a weird way, kind of how I feel like it's an opportunity for me to kind of give back to the tech community these days. This has been my life since well for a long time. You and I have both been in the industry for long enough to where we no longer put how long we've been in the industry
Yeah, it's a
on our
little
resume
scary.
because they're like, the 28-year-old person looking at a resume is like, nah, this dude's too old. I don't want this guy. So
Yeah,
put that on my
exactly.
resume. You don't need to know. Anyways, yeah. So I feel like, I love comedy. Always have. I used to do stand-up comedy when I was younger. First time I ever got on stage and performed actual stand-up comedy was when I was a junior in high school, and have always just had it as a passion, as a hobby for a long time. And just really right before COVID, I would say got more serious about it. And during COVID, recognized, man, we need comedy and humor more than ever.
Yeah.
And so coming out of COVID, just as soon as we got out of COVID, I started a company called IT Misfits. And it is still a side hustle for me right now. But the concept behind it is to take technical professionals who want to maybe break out of their shell a little bit. It's 2025, New Year's resolutions, all those things.
Yeah.
If you want to do something different, whether it's just, hey, I want to try something I've never tried before, or you recognize that um, part of your skill set that you need to improve is being able to connect, communicate, make people laugh, then that's what this is for. And it's specifically geared to technical professionals so that we can help those who want to take that, kind of get that help. And we take them through a 6-week virtual workshop. And at the end of the workshop, you perform on stage at an actual comedy club. You get between a 5 to 10 minute set, whatever you've been able to develop over the course of the workshop. We have professional comic coaches come in for a couple of the sessions. One guy out of LA, one guy out of New York. They're performing comedians right now. They give their both of them are published authors, that kind of thing. So they give their feedback on your set, what you could do different, how you could work on a joke, things like that. We really work to make sure that you have a great tight 5 minute set by the time you get on stage, and that you're going to be very proud of that set. You bring friends, family, coworkers to the show. Everybody else that's in the show does the same. We end up with a good group of people that are all there and excited about watching their friends, their peers, other people in the industry work. Even if you get up on stage and you make people laugh, that's amazing. The people in the audience are also tech professionals. So it's a tech friendly audience, and you can tell tech jokes that you could never tell anywhere else
Right.
because they're dirty, but because they're things that other people just don't understand, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
understand why that's funny. And in fact, that does happen. Usually, there's a number of people that aren't tech that show up to the shows, and afterwards, sometimes they'll be like, "I know everybody else was laughing. I have no idea why they were laughing," and it's
Right.
just like, well, you're not in tech, so you didn't get the jokes, but did you have a great time? Absolutely had a great time. So anyways, um, you get this great audience that's there to see you succeed. And some of those techs in the audience just getting a chance to laugh at our own industry, getting a chance to laugh at ourselves, and getting a chance to see that, hey, we're not just, we're not just techs. We have these
Yeah.
other skills, these other attributes, this other fun stuff that we like to do. Maybe I could do that for people that aren't techs, and they see that not all techs are the desktop support guy that's in the corner
Right.
with the
Right.
lights off that just
Yeah,
doesn't.
exactly. Headphones.
That's none of that is true, and I love proving that. Disproving that belief, and so all of that to me is a great way to kind of give back to the tech community. We've got a show in Tempe in on February 26th, and then we'll be in LA, Irvine, and Brea on February I want to say 18th. I'm sorry, February 26th. Yeah. And February 18th and 19th in Brea and Irvine. And then we'll be out in Austin in March at South by Southwest and a show prior to South by Southwest. So very excited about how that's all going forward. Would love any of your listeners to join us on stage, join us at a show. Look us up, itmisfits.com. And thanks for letting me do that shameless plug.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's awesome because I think one of the things that we enjoyed doing together was teasing each other and the people around us to make work something that you enjoyed experiencing, right? It wasn't just all HR speak, like is what I say, right? People talking in this certain business voice that is like gets old really fast, right?
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
just sharing that type of camaraderie and creating that type of an experience and pulling people out of their shells, we did a lot of that. Right? Just getting people to loosen up, telling people it's okay to be yourself. I've done a number of podcasts about that, both from an employee standpoint and especially from a manager standpoint. Just be yourself, right? Be a human being and be yourself. That's something that goes a long way into building trust and a good relationship with the people that you work with, especially if you're a manager. And speaking of managers, in your eyes, Jerry, what do you think makes a great manager?
Oh, wow. So I think, I mean, I think you touched on all of it, right? Authenticity is initially probably one of the most important things, and being somebody that your employees feel like they can come to with initially work problems, but as you build the relationship, you will find that they feel comfortable coming to you with personal issues. And I always tell um, it's funny because people will say, I want to be in management. Not every tech, but most people in tech sooner or later recognize that one, I've had some pretty crappy managers. I think I could do this. They
Yeah.
generally get put in some sort of team lead position at least once, or maybe leading a
Hmm.
project or something along those lines. And then they get this, sort of this, well, maybe this is something I want to do. And they see sort of money and all these other, other things associated with it, prestige, whatever you want, whatever motivates you to go that direction. People start to go that direction. And sometimes I'll get people that reach out and they'll say, hey, what would you think? I think I could do. And the first question I always ask them is, let me put you in a situation and you tell me what you would do. And you are a manager of a small team, maybe six guys. Oh, guys and gals. I use guys interchangeably. Hopefully that's okay.
Yes.
We're
That's
Gen
the and
X, and
and
that's
that's what they do in Alaska, and that's what I'm from Minnesota originally, and guys is
yeah.
a global term,
Yes.
right?
And by the way, it's IT, so it's 99% accurate. And
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
but anyway, so you got a team of six guys, let's say, and one of them comes to you and says, I need to talk to you. Okay, close the door. Hey, I'm getting a divorce. And I just want to let you know from a work perspective, because I think it could potentially impact my work performance. I'm certainly going to have to take some extra time off. I'm going to have to figure out what I'm doing with the kids. I don't know everything. And the person starts to clearly get emotional about the situation. How do you think you would handle that? Now, 50% of the time, the tech that I'm talking to will say, man, I don't know. I guess I would, I guess I, maybe try and comfort them a little bit. I guess I would think a little bit about work and at the same time, just, wow, that's tough. And then 50% of the time, the person goes, oh my God, I would never, nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would tell them that's not my business. They just need to handle it. And I'm like,
Right.
okay. So the 50% that answers that way, this may not be where you need to be. Maybe,
Yeah.
or at least you've got a lot of stuff that you need to develop on the emotional intelligence side. And I think, so back to your original question, emotional intelligence is really a key to doing, I think, doing well as a manager. And um, you've got to have the tech, but generally, if you're looking at those leadership roles, you probably already have it. And you've got the intelligence, or else you
Hmm.
couldn't succeed in our industry anyways.
Right. Right.
But man, if you don't have the emotional intelligence, if you can't connect with people, I do think making people laugh, being able to be direct with people, but in a way where they walk away feeling like, okay, I get it. You're not, I hope people don't try and make everybody feel happy, right? If you're just trying to make people feel happy, I want to be their friends, you're also probably not going to be a great manager.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes there's tough conversations, right?
there is, and you got to have them. And if you can't have that tough conversation, but in a way that is professional, that allows you to continue to work together, I want us to be better. I want you to be better. Here's where I need you to be better kind of way. You're really going to struggle. So I think, from my perspective, it's that having that connection, that camaraderie built between you and somebody else, so that you can ask them to do the tough things, to have the tough conversations, to know that there's an honesty between the two of you, so that if something is wrong, they'll tell you. Man, you've got to be able to have a relationship with the people that work for you that allows them to come to you when something's wrong. And not, I mean, the personal side of the world that will develop. Evan and I clearly had that. And
Yep.
while neither one of us got divorced, we certainly had a great relationship where if I was having a tough day, I knew I could call Evan in and say, hey, can you help me work through this? I got chewed out by this, chewed out by that. But anyways, the relationship where, hey, if Evan saw something wrong or saw me doing something wrong, he not only had um, the insight to see it, but he knew he had the green light to come to me and say, hey, you're screwing this up. And that I wasn't going to take that and be like, okay, well, tomorrow Evan's working
Yeah.
the 16-hour shift, and it
Right.
looks like somebody to work the weekend kind of thing. We had a relationship that was, tell me when I'm doing something wrong. And I think that's what you have to develop. The rest of the tech and everything in general is not something that you have to work to develop if you've kind of got the right people in the first place. Every once in a while, you'll find somebody in your team that's how did you how did you get here? You know,
Yeah.
we need to send you in for some basic stuff like how to.
Right.
Usually it's the web developer who's decided they're a programmer. And you're like
Yeah. No.
you're not. It has HTML is not the same as C. And just because you understand the language doesn't mean that you really understand the basics of structured programming or object-oriented programming or any of the other stuff. So
Right.
anyway, I think that part of it, the developing the personal relationship, to always standing. I guess I had great advice when I first started being a manager, and that was um, the the you stand in front of your team and you take the arrows when it's bad, and then you stand behind the team when the accolades come. and they get
Yes.
the accolades, and you as a manager have to be okay with that. And you
Yeah,
get the
100%.
and as a manager, you have to be okay with that. And if those two things are don't appeal to you, then hey, maybe management and leadership, because that's really leadership less than management. And I do kind of break those two things apart a lot of the time. But
Right.
leadership really is that standing in front of your team when the arrows are coming and saying, okay, as a team, we get it. I'll go back and talk with the team, and then taking that message back to the team, but in a way that is constructive as opposed to maybe just brutal that you can at times in our world get. So I think that was great.
100%. In fact, you
The
just reflected back what I said earlier this week in another podcast about a true leader always takes responsibility and accountability and all of the criticism and none of the praise. The
yeah,
praise goes to people on the team who actually do the work. Let's be honest, right? They're the people
yeah,
who are doing the work. They deserve the praise. As a manager, it's your job to step in front, take the blame, take responsibility. I gave the illustration of Kenny Dillingham. We both live here in the Phoenix area. He's the coach of the ASU football team. And after their loss in the college football playoffs, he said, "That's on me. It's not the refs, it's not the players, it's not the assistant coaches. I'm responsible for the loss." And that's a leader.
that's a
And
leader.
if you hear a coach come out and say, "My players are terrible and the refs were bad and my assistant coaches failed me," your title may be head coach. You're not a leader,
Yeah, that's
right?
perfect. Yeah. And that's and then when we talk manager versus leader, to me, manager is a set of duties. Essentially, it's what HR, a lot of times what
Right.
HR wants to do. It's, oh, you're gonna, you make up people's time schedule. You make sure that they get the
Yeah.
work. You're managing the projects, you're all those things. That's management. And you need to be a good manager, conscientious, pay attention. You got to be focused on all the right things and working on the strategy and things of that nature. And I think all of that comes in with management. And then leader comes in with it's the people side of that conversation, and it's
Yeah.
the people above you, people below you, and people around you that you have to be a leader for and with all of those people. And the other thing that I heard that is stuck with me, sometimes it serves me, sometimes it doesn't, is you have to, once you're a leader, you have to take I out of every sentence and put we in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
and
or me. Or I
yeah,
mean or
I or
or
me,
they
right?
and you. It's yeah,
Yeah,
I've said that exact thing. I told my team that I get even a little bit leery if somebody says, "Hey, what's going on with your team?" If it's web development, you guys, how are things going? And, I say, well, we launched the new site and we launched this, feature on the website and stuff. And it's like, I even get a little bit uneasy about that. Well, I didn't do any of the programming for that or, do the release or stay up at night to launch it at midnight or whatever it might be sometimes. That was the team who did that or a specific person on the team. So I'm even careful sometimes not to even take collective credit for
yeah,
things that, yeah, sure, maybe I had a hand in it. And, obviously there are things that you have to do to make that possible, but even kind of staying away from stealing any of the credit for the positive things. On the flip side, right, if the website goes down, that's my responsibility. I take full responsibility for that. I will do better to fix it. I will put in place plans to manage that better. It's nothing about somebody on the team who screwed up. And maybe that's even the case. Maybe somebody on the team did screw up. No one else is going to know that, right? I'm taking responsibility. That person works for me. It's my responsibility to make sure that they were equipped to handle that situation. And that just leads me into uh, an illustration of that. Let's say go back 10 years ago, Jerry, and at this major retailer, something went wrong on the website. I was a bit of a solutions architect in those days, and you were the manager, and we had an issue on the website, and I think it was either your day off or whatnot. Something went wrong, and I called you at home and said, and probably a little bit of panic. Remember, this is like a $2 billion company. And, a good portion of the revenue was generated through the web store. And I said, Jerry, such and such is broken. What should I do? And you said, I think you should figure it out. And, it was like, what? So I like hung up the phone and I was probably cursing you under my breath, stupid Jerry. What kind of advice is that? I need some practical advice here. What am I supposed to do? And after I kind of got over the pity me stuff, I sat at my desk and I figured it out. And then when you came in the next day, you just nonchalantly say, Hey, how did that work out? And I said, I figured it out. And you're like, Yeah, I knew you would. And that was it. Right. And it was like, that was a good lesson because it taught me uh, that I had the ability to figure it out. And I had a manager who challenged me and trusted me to do that. There's a lot of people in management who would have micromanaged that situation and would have wanted to take over and then taken credit for having fixed it and would have not given me the opportunity to do it on my own and to learn a valuable lesson, right? And I've always appreciated that. And I usually tell my teams that story just as in prep for the day when I say that to them. Well, I think you should figure it out, right? Here's where that comes from, and it's from a good place. And on the flip side of that, we've touched on it a little bit, but what makes a manager bad? What's a bad manager?
Yeah. Just to, I guess I would say, put a little touch on that story with Evan and I. I would say, uh, I think those moments as a manager are what make you, those are the big moments as a manager and as a leader is that. And
Mm,
I had a manager way early in my career that said, he said it differently, but I was like, I can go, let me go in there, I'll get this taken care of, blah, blah. And he said, I don't need you to ride in here on your white horse and solve all the problems. I need you to be able to take your team and teach them to solve the problems so you don't have to do this. If every time you've got to come in here and do this and be the hero, we have a problem. And I was
mm,
like, oh, yeah, I mean, it was a slap in the face. He was a military guy and he was
right.
very direct. I don't think he even said it that nice. And I'm sure there were some curse words in there, um, but that's the way I look at that situation. And I think the reverse of these things is those, a bad manager immediately looks to blame. And I've had that manager and I am not able to work with them. I will quit a job very quickly when I recognize that's who I'm working for. A bad manager, but you can see them in meetings take credit for stuff that wasn't theirs,
Yes.
take credit even for other people's growth in a weird way. Like, oh, this guy's doing so good. You've really helped, that guy's really turned it around. Yeah, I've worked with him so much this year. It's like, wow, that's
Right.
gosh, that's just I can't believe people do that. But that sort of thing, um, not really being self-aware is
Hmm.
probably something that's a real problem. Um, be when you say a bad manager, not being conscientious about those things that are important from just a work perspective, because there is absolutely you have to be I want you to be a good leader. You have to be a good manager. You have to know the responsibilities of your team. You have to be able to manage them appropriately with all of the little intricacies. And unfortunately sometimes that is HR's their checkbook of did you do these things, which can be feel like paperwork and other stuff, but it's still your responsibility and you've got to have those things. If you're a manager in tech, a lot of the time you have a trouble ticket queue that you have to administer. Yeah, unfortunately, as a manager, you've got to make sure that people are looking at the tickets. I mean, some of the
Yeah.
stuff is
Hmm.
simple, but you still have to do it.
Hmm.
Um, Projects, you've got to make sure as a manager that you've got the resources assigned to the projects, that the project managers feel like your team is responsive and can get the things done. As a manager, you've got to be sure you've got the right people in place in the right seats. The right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus and in the right seats. I've always loved that. analogy. You've got to have all those things, and then you have to be a good leader. And if you're, it's almost like if you're a good leader but not a good manager, people are going to love you, and at the same time, your department's going to be in disarray. If you're a good manager and not a great leader, your people aren't going to love you, but they're at least going to say, "Yeah, but I mean, we get the job done. I come into work, we get the job done. I go home." There just won't be a lot of passion there, and you'll see that in teams. When there's neither, whew, that's you're
Yeah.
gonna things are gonna be bad. Uh, and when there's both, man, it's beautiful, and you'll love going to work, and you'll love your work, and you just won't see turnover in departments where you normally would have seen turnover. And if you want to know if somebody's a good manager, a good leader, look at those departments that have the same people in them, and they're just they seem like they're happy. They go out, that they seem like they're doing a good job. They sit at the same tables a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time they sit at the same table. They maybe go out to lunches together every once in a while, and it actually ends up like they seem like they really enjoy what they're doing, and they don't generally transfer out of the department unless it's their next opportunity. And sometimes the next opportunity is outside the company. And I will tell you, one of the things I've always prided myself on is you need to be, I believe you should be developing the people that work for you so that they can take your job. And if you're not doing that,
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
you're not developing the people the right way. Because when I get my next opportunity at whatever level that is, like so when I was working with Evan, and I was a manager, a mid-level manager, I wanted to move into director. Well, if I get an opportunity to move into director, and they're like, "Hey, we've got this opening and we need something to happen really quick," but I don't have somebody that I can turn to and say, "Hey, this person's really close to ready, or could at least team lead." If for whatever reason HR doesn't feel like they're quote unquote the right person or whatever, you've got somebody that can step into position, or a couple of people that can step into position um while you look for whomever that is, or while they prove to you that they are the right person. I can move on to that next opportunity. If you don't have those people ready, the company will look at you and go, "God, yeah, but we can't let that department fall apart. How are we going to do this?" And you put the company in kind of a bad position.
Yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
get your team ready. Have your team ready. You should be proud of the people that work for you. So proud of them that when somebody says, "Who could take your place?" you got one or two people that you could list them off. And if you can't do that, it's probably because you're scared and you were, "Oh, what if they take my job?" Yeah, what if they take your job? Honestly, if they're better at it than you are,
So
then
be it.
yeah, so be it. Isn't that better for everybody involved? And yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. And I mean, you don't want to write yourself out of a position, but at the same time, if you're looking at somebody going, "Damn, this guy could do this job and probably be better at it than I am," you ought to start shopping that person around as an opportunity, either in your department or somewhere else. And if you're at a good company, nobody's going to look at that and go, "Oh, okay, well, we don't need you. You're fired. Let's find this other guy. Let's bring this other guy in and we're going to just let you go." You develop that person. Wouldn't it be great to have you develop those people other places? Wouldn't it be great if we had somebody developing people like that throughout the organization? That's how companies look at it. We tend to look at it myopically, but companies look at it at a much broader level. If they're good leaders, then they really look at it that way, and you really your career will move forward faster if you're developing the people underneath you.
Yeah, and that's a key point. And thinking about that, how do you, when you're building a team, how do you, what kind of things do you look for when you're recruiting team members then? Like you've got open positions. What are some of the qualities? What are some of the things that you're looking for in a potential employee?
Yeah. So certainly skill set to me, you kind of, again, you have to have the basics in that person. So
Right, from
skills,
a tech perspective,
yeah.
right? You got to know the X's and
Yep.
O's.
Yep. And in a lot of the time, I will make sure that the other team members have an opportunity to interview the person, because I want to make
Mhm.
sure there's team fit and skill set. And a lot of the time, the team is better at knowing the skill set than I am,
Yeah.
because they know the tech better. And the higher up you go, the less you'll know that tech, and less you would know if that person really has that skill set. Um, and then But on the personal level, a lot of the time I'm looking, I try and discern work ethic. I like to see in that resume for how they feel like they grew in every position, what they feel like they'd be bringing to this role, and I'm looking for um, that in them a sense of ownership in what they do, and a sense in pride in what they do. And if they've kind of got those attitudes, a lot of the time you can teach them the whatever way. So I work at company A. I can teach them company A way versus, tomorrow I work at company B. Well, I can teach them company B way. Those are just those can be taught. The even the department intricacies can be taught. The ability to interact with me on a personal level, the ability to get
Hmm.
along with the team, the ability to bring an honest opinion forward. All those things that really that I mean, I look for those things in people that I found in obviously I found in Evan, right? Are you going to come to me and be able to tell me I'm doing something wrong and do it in a way that's not, I mean, do it in a professional way,
Right.
and at the same time feel confident in doing that? Will you feel confident in having those conversations with other people on the team? I'm trying to find all of that in people. I really am looking for that emotional intelligence, and I want them to be able to tell me stories that explain how they did that.
Yeah.
And if they can look me in the eye and they can tell that story and feel comfortable, a lot of the time I'll do at least one or two team interviews, individual team interviews with a person, and then there's a interview with me, and then I try and bring them back to a full, hey, we all met, and here we're all in this kind of the same day or same time frame, so it's not arduous interviewing, but towards the end, a lot of the time, a lot of that corporate speak that they might have had on the front end is
Right.
worn down by the interviews. And so now you get them into a group interview, two or three, the same people that they've interviewed with, maybe more. And it's hey, we just wanted to have a general question. There were a couple of things that you said during the interviews we wanted to ask a little bit more. And I thought it would just be good to have all of us here so we kind of all get the answers at the same time. Don't feel like this is us all ganging
Yeah.
up on. It's just an opportunity for us to really, as a team, get to know you a little bit better and see how they interact there. And a lot of the time, because it's a group, you get a different feel for them, and you really do solidify the how is this going, how would they be with us as a team? And if they met all of those, they met the skill sets, then they're probably pretty high up on the list. I always say you got to have two or three, maybe four people come in because you really do want to see, you think you
Right.
know what you're looking for. You think you know on a resume what looks good. And then you bring those people in and you go, oh man, that was not at all. And that guy didn't have the tech at all. And if they don't have the tech, I don't even bother with the rest of the interviews, to be honest,
Right.
because I can't. Most of the time in a company, you're not hiring to bring them into and then develop them into the tech. Or at least at our level, I mean, we're not.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to teach you, how to program. That's not. We don't have the 6 months to a year that it would take to do that. Um, so that's kind of on the front end, you're looking for those things. And once you've proven that their resume is accurate, really a lot of the time, which is surprisingly, uh,
Sometimes, yes.
yeah, it's sadly a requirement these days because it seems a 20 to 30% just failure rate on the resume these days of just pure. I asked them 5 questions, and there is no way this person has ever been, a network engineer or a programmer at. And then you background these people, and it's. I talked to your former boss, and he either has no idea who you are, or he said here were the negative things he said about you. Why would you list that person as your reference?
Right.
Oh, I actually had one guy not too long ago go, oh, I didn't realize you were actually going to call the references. I'm like, well, why?
Why do
I
you
don't
think we
even
asked
understand.
for them?
What did you think was going to happen? Well, nobody's ever actually called him before.
It's
But
like,
still, why would you put somebody that doesn't like you on there? Like, just
no, I don't know.
put your mom or something. If you didn't
Yeah,
think you're
somebody.
going to call the reference, why wouldn't you put fake names, fake numbers?
Yeah, at
Oh,
least
this doesn't work.
something.
Something different. Why would you actually put someone who is doesn't like you as the like? I don't understand at all. Thank you very much
No.
for interviewing for the position. This we're just not for you.
Yeah, it's funny. We haven't talked specifically about this question, you and I. I want the audience to understand. We haven't sat around and talked about this and said, well, let's do this in a recording. But these are the same ways I approach it. One of the first things that I want to do with somebody is see if they can carry on a conversation with me, right? Because I need that. I need a person, like you said, who can raise questions, who's not afraid of me, who's not afraid to state their opinion in a professional way, who can't communicate at all. I need to have a back and forth, right? It's really important that when you get into the nitty gritty of doing the work and stuff, you have a person, even on a flat level, not so much even manager to employee, but on a flat level, can I have a conversation with you about a topic, right? And have a back and forth, and you have a POV, and we can discuss it and we can debate it and work on a consensus. So if I get you in an interview and none of that happens, your chances of moving forward, regardless of your technical prowess or whatever, it's a slim chance, right? Because that part of the job is important. And one of the things I've tried to develop in people is you've got the tech background, right? I see your resume, and your resume got past the gatekeepers, right? So obviously you tick some boxes, but can you communicate with me, and can you learn to think like a business person, right? I want tech people who aren't just meeting requirements, right? They're asking questions about why do you want this requirement, and helps the business person understand what a better technical solution looks like, right? And getting to the heart of exactly, right? You ask a question, tell me about an instance when you this or that, and they give you very specific things. And you're like, but how did you decide that that was the way to do it? Well, somebody told me to do it that way. It's like, yeah, that's not what I want to hear, right? I want to hear that through your experience, you had developed a process in your own head of how you were going to solve a problem or how you were going to do it, and how you were going to evangelize that solution with the team and convince other people or build consensus, whatever it is. That's the part that I'm looking for, right? As a manager, that's what I'm looking for. You're right. I exactly the same thing. I have my team ask technical questions just to make sure that they can talk the talk, right? And in our world, you know right away whether somebody knows what they're talking about or doesn't know what they're talking about. It's very clear. And I've had some interviews in the past where, I talked to the team, hey, what did you think of, uh, Joe in the interview? And they're like, nah, he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Couldn't answer a simple question. Difference between Java and JavaScript. He didn't know how to answer that or whatever. So it's like, okay, then that's a no, right? And then you have other people who do that and they're just like a stone wall in the interview, right? They're very uncomfortable. They can't communicate. They struggle with a back and forth. Their answers seem very prepared. I was thinking about it in the recent, political cycle. The last thing I want to hear is somebody just reading their talking points, right? I
Yeah.
want them to be able to communicate and connect with their audience. And it's the same thing that I'm looking for in a 15-minute conversation. I like to have just like a 15-minute conversation. Can you carry on a conversation with me? Can you hold your own in a room with me in a conversation? Because that's what life's going to be like, right? Yes, you're going to be sitting at your desk programming, but you're going to be in meetings and you're going to have to sell yourself and your solutions and everything else to other people and to higher ups. Are you able to do that? And are you able to communicate in that way? And the teams that I usually build are teams who become great business people, not just coders or web developers. They understand the business and how to talk to business people about their needs. That's when you're next level, right? And in the tech world, sometimes those are harder to find, but they're out there. And those are people you can potentially even develop in, like you said, into the next manager, into leaders, and sort of via example, you show them this is how you do it. And this is how you move to the next level. And, spotting bad people, that's probably too negative of a term. People who are not set up for success. That sounds like an HR phrase, right? Like rather than calling them
Yes,
bad
it does.
apples.
It's very,
Uh,
very HR, what you just said.
yeah, and man, do I stay away from that as much as possible, right? Because I want to be real. I want to be authentic.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are bad apples.
Yeah, sure.
And I have some thoughts about how I spot a bad apple. How do you spot a bad apple?
Oh man. I think for me, I'm generally looking for the it's almost I look for the impact to the rest of the team. So getting into a team when you I mean, if you've hired a bad apple, you know that generally relatively quickly. And I don't know is that I would, oh well, this is what because you just they come in and they either aren't really performing, you just start to see weird stuff happen.
Yeah,
And it just is kind of like oh, that guy's not right. Or the team starts to tell you, hey, this is something funny, something funny. But if you inherit a team, which is generally where I'd say it's harder to spot the bad apples, is when you inherit the team, and you come in and you don't want to initially make big changes, sweeping changes. I have been in situations where I inherited a team and I heard from three or four people that this guy's such a bad, oh, he's bad. And it turned out it was it was the reverse, right? Like
right.
after enough time in the team, I recognized, oh, those individuals are the bad apples, and they were trying to get rid of somebody that was actually doing a good job. And it's how it worked out was we were
Yeah,
able to, sort of, it was a larger department at that, it was a 30-person sort of help desk department. And there were three or four people that they kind of took it on themselves to get rid of anybody that seemed like they were a good person. So, but you spend that time and I think it just goes back to that. You have to spend time with your employees in meetings where they're interacting with other people, and you have to get a sense from everybody in those meetings. I mean, you have to be aware enough to see the interactions, to recognize, and to ask yourself, why would somebody do that? Why would that
yeah,
person have said that? Why would that other person have reacted that way? When there's a, if I say one thing and the reaction is not at the same level as what I said, then there's something more there, and you need to find out what the something more is. If I'm watching an interaction with a team member and a business partner, a team member and another employee, and that happens, the team member says something and the reaction to that team member is higher than it should be, or is very different, maybe I guess even lower, like no engagement with that team member, you have to then look and say, okay, why is that happening? And it really makes sense to investigate that afterwards, being an open and honest person with both of those people individually. Hey, do you mind hanging out after the meeting?
yeah,
Sure, no problem. Everybody else leaves, and you say, I noticed something
yeah,
when Jerry said that he was happy to help. I noticed you didn't roll your eyes, but it didn't, you had a look of disbelief on your face. Is there something I need to know? And
yes,
that person will then tell you. That doesn't mean they're telling the truth. They may be telling it from their perspective,
sure.
or they may be just outright lying. But if you get enough of those different, types of things, then you really start to see that sort of bad apple. So I'm looking for those emotional reactions, I think, and just that general gut feel of
Yeah.
something's not right. There's a lot of the time you just sort of get this sense of something's not right. I don't know what's going on with the team, but something's not right. And you start asking a lot of questions and start digging into it and find out what's going on. Sometimes what you might find, what you think is a bad apple, is just somebody that's in the wrong position or that
Yep.
has, maybe feels like they've been wronged. That bad apple might very well be the person who thought they should get your job but didn't.
Yeah,
And
it could be.
there's some animosity there that, hey, you gotta work through. And then you say, you figure these things out, and you address them appropriately from a perspective of, I want us as a team to succeed. I want you as a person to succeed. And if all of that happens, then I succeed. But if those things don't
That's right.
happen, I don't succeed. So don't look at the world as, I, as the manager, need to succeed. Your team needs to succeed. Your individuals need to succeed. That is success for you. And you change the game when you start looking at it that way.
100%. And that's a critical piece is like, as my team is promoted and is seen by the rest of the department or the organization as being successful, I a rising tide raises all boats, right? And that's my source of satisfaction is seeing my team members do well and flourish. That's where I get my most of my satisfaction. And you touched on something really good there too. I think there are two types of bad apples. There is a bad apple who cannot be helped, right? There are people who cannot be helped and they refuse coaching. They believe that they know everything or whatever, and they're at a point where they're not coachable anymore. And then
Yeah.
there are the types who I would just say they just don't know any better. They've never had someone demonstrate for them good behaviors or how to do things in an appropriate way or how to talk or how to listen to people or any of that. No one's ever really coached them and given them those tools, but they're willing to learn. And I've had a couple of experiences there where some people have fallen short on a number of things. Maybe it's interpersonal, maybe it's just their work ethic or whatever. And when you get into it with them and you start coaching them and they see that you really want to help them succeed and they grab onto it and they're like they change. I've had a couple of experiences where someone was seen somewhat globally by the organization as kind of a bad apple or somebody who's right on the edge, right? And they don't get along with this person, whatnot. And over the course of 6 months of just talking to them, and I think demonstrating through your own behaviors and how you talk to people and how you interact with people and giving them that type of advice, here's how to say things, but not in a preachy way, not in a talking down to them way, but just in a casual way of like, say I had an experience with somebody who I wasn't having a good interaction with, and I sensed something, and so we talked about this or whatnot. They can learn through that experience that you had without you telling them you need to do this or do it this way, right? Be yourself, but think about a win-win situation, right? That's something that you want to help people create win-win situations. And so you demonstrate that by here's what I did in this situation to create a win-win. Is there anything that you're working on right now where you've got a situation like that where you think you could create a win-win? Pose it as a question or as a challenge or something rather than dictating to them to do this or that, right? And there are those types of bad apples. And there's nothing more rewarding as a manager is to see that person turn it around, right? To
Yeah, that's
either be
true.
off to a bad start or have a bad reputation and to help them turn that around and really be successful. That's a great reward, right? I love that experience, but just I think demonstrating by your own behaviors, often just leading by example. The other thing that I picked up on what you said too is that sort of noticing body language. And one of the things that we deal with now is just like this, a Zoom meeting, and there's 20 faces on the screen in a meeting. I've told my team members it's like when someone else is talking on your team or a leader's talking, maybe there's a VP in the meeting, look at everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Don't
So
even look at
true.
the person who's talking. Just focus on just one by one. Go to each person and see if you can determine how they feel about what's being said, right? And if a certain person gets up in a large meeting and everyone turns their camera off, that's a telltale sign that no one wants to listen to that person, right? That is a sign that they're afraid that their facial expressions of negativity are going to be given away when that person's talking and they'll turn their camera off. Well, what was it about that, right? What is it that they're saying? And then, learn from bad behavior. And one of the things I tell people, Jerry, is like, here are the behaviors that my best manager that I ever had did. His name's Jerry, and he did this and he did that. And then here are the characteristics of the worst manager I ever had. And I am determined to never do that, right? So you can turn it into a learning experience, right? Hey, I had a very bad manager at a place that I worked. What behaviors did they do that made them that? I will never do those. I promised to myself, I will never do that. Talking down to people was one of the top
Wow.
things. It's like, don't ever talk down to somebody, right? Don't talk to somebody like they're a kindergartner. Um, Treat them like an equal, like an adult, and have a conversation with them. And don't go in with an agenda to belittle or berate or to, I got to tell this person how, make it a conversation, right? I had somebody say, well, do you want me to quit? And I said, I'm thinking to myself, why would they say that? Of course, I do not want you to quit. I want you to succeed. Like, why would you think that I would want anything else than for you to succeed? But here's some things. Let's talk through some things about how you can succeed, right? And
Yeah.
let's, work on some things of where you can. I'll give you some suggestions of things to do and see if that turns around. And then meanwhile, you're talking to the other team members and getting feedback. Is this person improving? Have they taken the advice? Have they tried to change their behavior? And one of the things I tell people too, both managers and employees, it's like, but don't read off a script, right? Like you go into the manager's office and talk to me about how you know,
Yeah.
don't do that. Make it a
Yeah.
conversation, right? Like don't read down a list of things. And if you give somebody advice, it's like, hey, when you have a meeting with this person, talk about this and that. And then they do it, but they don't feel it, right? They're just doing it because you suggested it, not because they mean it. And there's a difference there, right? And it all comes back to what we talked up right up at the top is that authenticity, right? Having just being a human being, talking authentically, not using your HR voice or some sort of a tone that's condescending or anything else. Hey, look at me. I've said that to people too, even in a Zoom thing. Hey, look at me right now, right? Just look at me. We're okay. It's okay. We're going to work through this, right? I'm going to help you. We're going to work together on this. Just to kind of shock them out of that mode of
Yeah. Wow.
wherever their mindset is, right? And you can really make a difference with somebody, uh, but trust takes time, right? And I think a lot of managers maybe don't have the patience for that. But like you said, when you inherit a new team, those team members don't know that they can trust you, right? They don't know
Yeah.
you from Adam. You're the new guy. They don't know that they don't know what kind of manager you're going to be. And believe me, they're afraid. They're scared because
Yep.
they don't know what life's going to be like for them, right?
Yeah.
What's this guy going to be like? What's he going to do? What's he going to say? Is he going to be a micromanager, a dictator? What's he going to be? They're afraid. And so I've told people it's like, you don't know it right now. You're just meeting you. You don't know me from Adam. You don't know it right now, but you're going to be able to trust me. We're going to
Yeah.
be able to trust each other. But I
Yep.
understand that you don't know that right now. And it's going to take me working really hard for 6 months, 9 months, whatever it takes to earn your trust. And I'm committed to doing that. Right. And just saying that right up front, saying, look, this is where we're going to get. And I had a guy at a previous place too. I could tell that he didn't trust me because when I would ask him questions, he would kind of scurry around looking for the right answer, and would tell me what he thought I wanted to hear. And I was just like, hey, 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 stop, chill out. We're just talking, right? We're just having a conversation here. You can trust me. I know you don't know that yet, but you'll learn that you can trust me. But you got to be in it for the long term. You got to be in it for their success. Like you said, it can't be about you. It's got to be about them, their growth, their maturity. That's what makes a difference. What do you think, like getting off on that topic a little bit, what do you think are some mistakes that managers often make?
Um, I think so. I think a lot of the time people it when you first take on a team, you make decisions too fast without really um, without really considering the entire environment. I do think when you take over a team, you also take on the baggage of the previous manager, whatever that team's um, interaction with their previous manager was, they're going to immediately put on you as you are the same. If they had a great
Yeah.
manager, it's actually really helpful. But if they had a bad manager or just an okay manager, you're going to have that same.
The
You're just going
baggage.
to, yeah. And so you can't come in. I don't recommend coming in and oh, I'm going to make these sweeping changes. You really do
Yeah,
need to.
100%.
I think taking too long then to address issues is also a mistake managers make, especially when it comes to personnel issues. Something that if you recognize that someone is not pulling their own weight, someone is not really quote unquote part of the team, you need to address that really pretty quickly with the
Hmm.
person individually, and then all those other things that Evan said as how you try and work through those things. Is it right? They're on the right team. They're just not in the right seat. All those things you can work through a bunch of different ways, but being very quick to identify it and then work directly with that person on what you're seeing, what you're feeling, and trying to get that. If you don't do that, you will the rest of the team will know it. And when nothing will destroy team camaraderie and team performance worse than having one person in there that everyone else knows isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing,
Yeah. Oh
and
boy,
pulling their
that's
own
true.
weight. And so you really do have to address it. Now, the only other thing I would put in that little statement is you address it with the individual. The team will at times then you know they will say, well, so and so still isn't doing X. I'm addressing that. I am having meetings with
Yes.
them to address that. I can't go into the details about it, but I do want you to know I have seen that and I am working with them on that. But that's an individual thing. And I'm glad that you brought it to me, but I also hope that you recognize I can't share with you what I am doing
Hmm.
with that individual at this time. That will, quote unquote, buy you some time with the team. But at some point, if they don't improve, you still have to do the hard part, have to make the
Right.
decision. That person should never be surprised by the fact that that when they get to the point where they are leaving with a box, they should not be surprised by the fact that they are leaving with a box. Um, and if they are, that is absolutely a failure on your part as a manager. Now they may
Yeah.
say they had no idea, but you know, you know,
Yeah.
you
That's
know
right.
that they know that you know that they know.
Right.
And then the other thing is more on the manager side of the world. There are in our world, in the tech world, there are a lot of situations that are really systems, and the the world is made up of systems. In our world, there are systems on top of systems, but the systems that I'm talking about is one of the mistakes managers make is not recognizing they are part of a system. And the part of the system that you are is whoever brings stuff to you to do, to work, to manage, to whatever it is, those are your inputs into your system. And when you do whatever it is you do to those and you push them somewhere else, those are the outputs to your system. Recognize that your outputs of your system are somebody else's inputs, and that you need to have a very good relationship with the people for whom you create inputs. because they will only see, in general,
Right.
their world as all these, and this happens in tech all the time, those idiots in that technology over
Yeah.
there have no idea what they're doing
Right.
because they're giving us this crap, whatever it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
And then so let's pretend your team will say, those idiots don't have any idea because they keep giving us crap. And then you do your perceived magic intelligence, intellectual amazement that you do. And then your output, you're like, oh, it's perfect. It's glorious. It's beautiful. That's my child and I will protect it till I'm dead. And
Yeah.
then that goes somewhere else. And those people look over there and they go, these guys are idiots. Why are they doing
Yeah.
that? Step one, go look at your inputs because you have the most control over that. And go talk to those people that are giving you their inputs. And if your team says, we get all this crap and blah, blah, well, who's giving it to you? Go talk with those people and say, hey, my team says that when you give us stuff, it comes in this, you don't say it's crap. You say it comes in this
Right.
way. Requests come to us this way. Tickets come to us this way. Your complaints come to us this way. And that seems to be somewhat problematic. Can we do it different? Ask your team. Okay, you're saying the inputs are crap. What are those inputs? What would perfect look like to you? A lot of the time, the team will, I don't know. Well, if you can't tell me what you want, I certainly can't tell them what we want.
Yeah.
And we're really in this world of not understanding at all. Let's figure out exactly what perfect would look like. And they're not going to get it right. And they're probably never going to get it perfect, but maybe we can at least improve it. And then when you're all done with that, you go, and now let's talk to the team about our outputs. And the outputs are you can control, you have no control over how those people perceive them, but you can certainly talk to them about what would be better. What would my handoff to you in a perfect world look like? What would my team working with you in a perfect world, what would that look like? Let's talk about that and let's get those things figured out. And you will expand your team's just the world will get better when you start to recognize that that's a system. Up and down is a system, across is a system. You start to develop those systems, quote unquote, and your team will be happier. People around you will be happier. You'll be insulated from complaints because those complaints don't come to you because that team already knows how. You know what I mean? It just
Right.
the world
Yep.
becomes a whole lot better. The other thing I would say is getting to know your team quickly. Just on something we talked about earlier. I'm a big believer in Strengths Finder. That's
Yep.
a
Done that a
Strengths
number of
Finder
places.
2.0.
Uh-huh.
It just is a very quick way to get to know your team. It's you have to approach it the right way. It's not a, hey, everybody needs to do this and I'm going to read it and understand you better. It is a give and take. And it starts with, I'm going to share mine with you. You
Yeah.
don't have to share yours with me if you don't want to, but
Yeah.
I want to be honest and I want you to understand at least where I'm coming from when I talk about this. It's a great way to I hate the word hack because it's so overused these days, but it hacks a little bit of that building a rapport and building that
Yeah, it tells
uh
you a little something about the person that you
yeah,
might not, it might take you months to figure it out
yeah, yep,
on your own. And I usually start out by telling people, hey, look, I'm an introvert, right? So I need time to process
yeah.
discussions. And it helps them understand why I am the way I am. And
When
if
Evan
you
goes
can,
away quietly,
yes, right?
it's not a bad thing. And I
Yeah, no,
remember
it's not.
we had those conversations with people that you and I interacted with
Yeah.
at our previous job, where I would say,
Yep.
somebody would say, well, Evan was so quiet in that meeting. Was he upset? No, that's
No.
Evan processing. Let him process. He's going to go back to his office. And I'm telling you, in 2 or 3 hours, he's going to reach back out to you with some additional questions. And then the next day, he's going to go, I think this is what we should do. And you're going to be like, oh my God, you're right. But you got to
Yeah.
give him time. You
Yeah.
cannot. And so knowing that you're that way was huge in the way
Yeah, it's
you
a
and I
big deal.
interacted with each
It's
other
it's a big
and
deal.
how we had you interact with other departments. And that sort of thing is stuff that you do learn through
Yes.
that, right? Really learning about your team and stuff. It's just that's so key.
And helping people understand there's no right and wrong personality,
Yeah,
right? Like
there's no
there's different personalities,
different.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. There's Myers Briggs.
some of
Briggs.
my best friends are tremendous extroverts, and they
Yeah,
understand that I'm an introvert, and we get along perfectly fine. It's just understanding the other person. I want to add one mistake that I think managers make, and the reason I can say it is because I think I've made that mistake. Is paying too much attention or not being aware of people who come immediately to you when you start someplace to get you on their side,
oh
right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
there are divisions within the organizations and there are people and they immediately reach out to you and are selling you their perspective.
yeah,
They're, hey, I'm the person who you want to know in this organization. And as long as you're on my side, I'll be an advocate for you. And it turns out, yeah, there's probably a reason why they're doing that is because a lot of people don't like them or a lot of people don't respond to them well or whatever. And it's easy to kind of take that as, it's kids at the lunch table inviting you to come sit with them so that you can be against others or whatever, right? It's kind
yeah,
of that atmosphere. And I've seen that a couple places too. And it's easy to fall into it. Oh, this is great. This person really wants to, and then you find out later, no, that was an ulterior motive. It was to start to build their own faction within an organization and to sell you on their position.
yeah,
And that's something I think managers need to be cautious of.
yeah.
Our producer's telling us we need to wrap things up, Jerry, which is
All right.
I'm so frustrated. Michael Scott, my producer, is telling me to wrap things up. But I do have one final question for you. It's like, complete this sentence for me. A great manager makes you feel blank.
Oh man, great manager. I would makes I guess a great manager. My great managers have made me feel confident.
I like
Yeah,
that.
they made me feel confident, like that, and everything that comes with that confidence, right? Confident in myself, confident in the relationship with them, confident in my position at the company, confident. They just make you feel like yeah, I don't know. It's good, even if it's a bad day. It's a good day because I
Yeah.
know this isn't my last day because
Yeah.
something, and I know my boss, knows that I'm doing my best, and I know that all that just kind of comes with yeah. They make me feel confident. How about you?
I
What's your
love
answer?
that. And I would say something very similar too. They make me feel secure
Yeah,
that
right.
that I can trust them. I mean, so many things come with that, right? But that I feel secure. I'm not questioning their motives. I'm not questioning my situation or anything like that. They just make me feel secure. And out of that, especially with somebody like my personality, then out of that comes loyalty and hard work and everything else. When I'm in a position of security, people who feel insecure make a lot of bad decisions, right?
Yeah,
And
for
they
sure.
do a lot of things that actually are counterproductive. So I think those are both great. I think making your team feel confident and secure is something as a manager, man, it'll go a long way, right? Hey, I have loved our conversation. I want the audience to leave their comments or thoughts wherever you're viewing or listening to this podcast. You can watch it on Spotify. You can watch us on YouTube. You can also listen to us on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, lots of different places. It's an exciting conversation to always have with Jerry. I loved you being on the show, Jerry, and would love to have you back sometime if you're open to that. Go
Absolutely.
ahead, plug your side hustle again.
Yeah, I know one I was hoping there was a uh uh yeah, my side hustle is itmisfits.com. If you're at all interested in breaking out of your shell a little bit, you're in tech, you want to do something different this year. If you're recognizing that maybe you need to work on your communication, your connection skills, you want to develop your leadership skills, I believe that doing that through stand-up comedy is a great place to start. It's not stand-up comedy is not going to get you, you're not going to be a great leader because you did some stand-up comedy, but it really will be helpful. You do learn a lot of things that you didn't really recognize you would learn from it. But even if it's just I just like stand-up comedy and I've always wanted to try it. I'm in tech and I want to give it a shot. Great. You are gonna have fun. I've been thinking about working on one of these commercials, Evan, where I do I like go to Scottsdale and stand in front of a Lamborghini and be like, "Do you want to drive this car? Look at
Yeah,
this car. If you're interested in this lifestyle, my 10-step program for retail or what is it,
that's
real
right.
estate, flipping houses. I'm a multi-billionaire, blah, blah, blah." And then, be like, "No, I'm just kidding. None of that is true. But
Yeah.
if you want to, if you want to do something different this year, then please
I could
reach
I
out. I see what's
I
up.
could see you being a kind of a Better Call Saul guy, right? I can see that. Hey, again, Jerry, appreciate so much you being on the show, and best of luck. And hopefully, we'll get to talk to you again sometime. For myself and for Jerry and our producer Michael Scott, we want to wish you all a great day. We'll see you.